The Bold and the Beautiful, B&B, spoilers imply that Bill Spencer, Don Diamorne, would be eager to negotiate a dirty bargain with Dr. Grace Buckingham, Cassandra Creech. Could Bill recruit Grace to end Luna Nozawa, Lisa Yamada, in exchange for her freedom? Bill was upset with Grace when he found out she faked Liam Spencer's, Scott Clifton, brain tumor and the miraculous surgery that followed. Grace confessed to the cops knowing she may be looking at many years behind bars. Now Bill might provide Grace an opportunity to redeem herself in his eyes, though in truth it would mean traveling down an even more dangerous path. Perhaps Bill may decide there's another way for Grace to compensate the Spencers for all the misery she created. Bill might offer that he can make Grace's legal difficulties go away if she'll do what she does best and resort to dodgy medical procedures. Maybe Bill could present Grace with a surprising offer and hope she's eager to make a dirty bargain. B&B fans will recall that Bill pledged to end this pregnancy one way or another, so he hinted that he'd be willing to wipe Luna off the map totally if it came to that. Katie Logan, Heather Tom, insisted Bill couldn't murder Luna or compel her to terminate, so Bill acted like she talked him down. However, Bill might have just been telling Katie what she wanted to hear. It's still possible Bill will take dramatic action, so Grace could get pulled into all this if that's the case. Bill might offer Grace her freedom and an opportunity to start a new life abroad if she'll get rid of his Luna troubles. Of course, there's no assurance that Grace would agree to abort the pregnancy against Luna's will, or worse, inject Luna with something lethal to remove her totally. Even so, it'd be a fascinating twist if Bill at least tried to rope Grace into this mess. It just feels like that Grace tale was left dangling without any real closure, so this would be a fantastic way to bring it back around. The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers predict Bill's scheming could bring grave news for Luna, so remain with us for updates on any curveballs ahead. In the murky depths of Bill Spencer's mind, where loyalty to his family warred constantly with his ruthless instincts as a businessman and protector, a dangerous idea began to take root, an idea so insidious that even he, a man who had orchestrated corporate takedowns, manipulated markets, and broken hearts with calculated ease, felt a flicker of unease as he turned it over and over, testing its sharp edges until it gleamed with possibility. For Bill Spencer was nothing if not a man who refused to let anyone threaten the Spencers without facing the full weight of his wrath, and Luna Nozawa, with her chaos, her schemes, her reckless obsession with Will, had crossed the line into enemy territory, dragging his son into scandal, dangling the possibility of Spencer paternity as if it were a leash to be tightened at her whim, and though Katie Logan had pleaded with him, her voice trembling with the earnestness only Katie could summon, that he could not, must not, take Luna's life or force her hand in matters of pregnancy, Bill had simply pressed his lips into a hard line and nodded as though acquiescing, but inside, the storm still raged, because Bill knew that some threats couldn't be contained by kind words or legal maneuvers, some required a final solution, and that was why his mind, sharp as a blade honed over decades of ruthless boardroom battles, circled back to a name that had once spelled disgrace in bold headlines and had nearly destroyed his son Liam. Dr. Grace Buckingham. The disgraced physician who had faked Liam's brain tumor diagnosis, orchestrated a sham surgery, and in doing so nearly shattered the family, her eventual confession to the police dragging her into a legal quagmire that should have buried her for years. Yet here Bill saw opportunity, because what was ruin to one person could be redemption to another, and he, Bill Spencer, had the money, the influence, and the sheer audacity to twist fate to his liking, so when he arranged for Grace to be escorted into the dimly lit confines of his private office one late evening, the city skyline a glittering backdrop to his brooding silhouette, Grace herself trembled with a mixture of fear and defiance, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting handcuffs at any moment, but instead she found Bill leaning forward on his desk, his gaze sharp and unyielding, his voice low and deliberate as he laid out the terms of what he framed not as a threat but as an opportunity, telling her that she had a chance to wipe the slate clean, to buy her freedom, to escape the inevitable prison sentence that loomed like a guillotine above her, and all she had to do was one more job, one final act that would require her particular set of skills and her willingness to operate in the shadows of medicine, and Grace, whose hands had once held the scalpel that gave life and hope, now clenched them into fists as she realized what he was asking. To end the problem of Luna Nozawa once and for all, to use Her knowledge of pharmaceuticals, her access to certain restricted substances, to make Luna disappear in a way that could be explained as tragic misfortune, a medical complication, or perhaps something darker but untraceable, and Bill, with a predator's calm, sweetened the poison with promises that he would call in favors, grease the palms of prosecutors, bury her case so deep it would never see daylight again, leaving her free to start anew, perhaps under a new name in a new city, her sins forgotten. But as his words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, Grace's heart pounded with the weight of the choice before her, for though she had crossed lines before, though she had deceived patients and falsified records, she had never outright taken a life, and the thought of ending not only Luna's existence but possibly the life of her unborn child sent a cold wave crashing through her conscience. Yet Bill leaned back, his voice tightening with the steel of a man who rarely accepted no, reminding her of what she had cost his family, reminding her that this was not about morality but about balance, about evening the scales that Luna herself had tipped, and across town Luna, blissfully unaware of the deal being considered in hushed tones, stood before a mirror in the Forrester guesthouse, one hand protectively over her stomach, her lips curved in a smile that bordered on manic as she whispered to her reflection about the future she envisioned with Will, a future where no Spencer, no Elektra, no Hope, no one could deny her place at the table, while Will himself sat in his car outside Spencer Publications, staring blankly at the steering wheel, torn between duty and revulsion, knowing that if Luna's claims were true he was bound to her forever, yet every fiber of his being recoiled at the idea, his mind haunted by the spectre of Elektra walking out on him, her slap to Luna still echoing in his ears. And if he had known then that his father was even considering putting Luna's fate into the hands of Grace Buckingham, he might have stormed into that office and demanded an end to the madness, but instead the pieces were being moved in secret, and Grace, her pulse quickening, whispered back at Bill in a hoarse voice that even if she agreed she would need guarantees, she would need protection, she would need assurance that when this was over she could vanish without Luna's blood staining her name forever, and Bill, with the cold certainty of a man who had made and broken deals that decided fortunes, leaned forward once more and told her that guarantees were his currency, that she would be untouchable, that all she had to do was take the first step down this path, and as the clock ticked steadily toward midnight, Grace realized that her fate, Luna's fate, and perhaps the fate of the entire Spencer family now teetered on the edge of a decision that could not be undone, for if she said yes, the path would be set, and if she said no, Bill Spencer might find another way, perhaps one far bloodier and far less precise, and in that moment, with her freedom dangling just out of reach, Grace Buckingham wondered if the price of her salvation would be paid in Luna Nozawa's blood.